For the fight, the difference in class showed out between the two teams.
Yep. Yeah, you've beat me to it. Yeah, I think our fans would be pleased with the fight we put up, but disappointed that we weren't quite up to it. We were beaten by a better side, but we definitely bought the fight, and we got the game on our terms for most of that first half. You know, to have a team like Port Adelaide at 30 points at half time, that was a tick. Unfortunately, we weren't able to put any scoreboard pressure on. We had our opportunities, especially in that second quarter, and we just weren't able to convert. So at half-time, you know, we try to stay up and about and keep the game in that vein. Third quarter, I thought we fought again. Again, we're unable to convert. And it's not, you know, our forwards were beaten tonight, but it's also the way, you know, opportunities we had to move the footy and challenge Port Adelaide. We didn't take those. But yeah, you know, pleased with the fight. I thought we took it to them. They came back at us as we knew they would, as a good side does. But yeah, not quite good enough tonight.
What was the hardest bit of trying to unlock that Port Adelaide defence?
Well, the most frustrating part was when we had an opportunity to get the ball off the line and challenge them a little. We didn't. Now it was an extremely slippery night. You know, we had Ranger in the day. We thought it would dry out, and the dew came in. I think, you know, both sides were playing very much a territory game. You know, socking it off the ground, surging it on. So taking that into account, yeah, we still couldn't quite get it done at that long down the line. Port they held their shape really well. Something that they've done now for a number of years. You know, they're a very well-connected unit. It's where we'd like to get to as soon as we can.
Did those two injuries limit you? What you could do?
Oh, yeah.
Without overstate it?
Yeah, it's not the reason the game went the way it did. Although you you lose two small pressure forwards, and the style of play that we needed on the night was ball on the deck. We needed some pressure and some speed and some heat in around that forward line, and we lost that. So in the end, we're playing midfielders forward of the ball, and with that comes connection issues. We tried a number of different ways to fix that on the night. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work. We had Seedsman forward at one point, Sloan ahead of the ball. We tried a number of things around the footy as some of their mids started to get a little bit off the chain, and I was really pleased with Sam Berry. For a young kid we gave Sam a job midway through that third quarter, and he went to Boak for a period of time. Unfortunately, it was maybe a bit late for us, but he had a pretty good stint there. He'll learn a lot from today. But yeah, two injuries to the same player, it's the same style of player, is really hard to manage from that point because we're moving from every other line. But as I said, we still had a crack.
So you've got a group now that's going through a run of losses. Questions about their energy levels, how long you keep persisting with some players. Where do you think the group's at?
I've got no question on their energy levels. The energy was there tonight. The intent, the fight, that was there. During the week, we're doing a fair bit of work. We're going to continue to work on the way we play our footy. There's game management is one of the toughest things for a young squad, is actually understanding what, I think we had nearly 100 marks or 100 possessions less, than the opposition tonight. So at certain periods in the game, they were able to use the footy better than we did. And we watched a number of those at half-time where we had opportunities to challenge some of their structure and the way they defend, and we didn't do it. So that's our work on. A young group, you do find as the season gets longer and longer, it does become tougher to get them up and about. But you know, we had a good hit out at Samford level again. Started really slowly. Our guys fought back in that. We've got some guys back there that are playing some good footy. Chase Jones is embracing a new role and has been knocking at the door for a couple of weeks. You know, it looks like we're going to be forced into making some changes with injury post this one. But in saying that, it's not that we don't have guys ready to come in. Hately went back and played well today. O'Connor was good as a midfielder. So there's some different players that we'll have a look at.
When you say Chase Jones embracing a new role, how do you define that role?
Positional wise, he's been doing a little bit at halfback at SANFL level. We felt going back over some of Chase's best stuff with him and sitting down and talking through footy. It was some players quite enjoy that challenge of or seeing the game slightly differently. You've got a bit of a 180 view of the game, and he's performed really well. Seems to have found his a spark, and we're seeing a lot more acceleration, a lot more attack on the footy, and it's a real positive for him. We're trying him inside and on ball at AFL level last year, a little bit this year at SANFL, and hopefully we've found a spot for him that he feels really comfortable and can make an impact at AFL level.
Murphy, is that the long term by the sound of it?
I don't know yet, but the concern is that it could possibly be. Syndesmosis can be an interesting one. We've had a few who have had, Benny Davis has had it a couple of times this year and has been able to play through it, so everyone's different. I think that'll be a 24-hour one before we actually know. With fingers crossed for him.
How's McHenry in the rooms? Is he up and about?
He's moving around now. He's back. I had a quick chat to him post game. I think he'll be a little weary, but he's recovered.
What do you think of the tackle?
Oh, look, it's not really for me to comment on because it's going to go up, I assume. It's showdown, the heat's on, they're going at it. It's, and sometimes with footy, obviously we want to look after the head, and I totally agree with what the AFL are doing in that space. It's probably the biggest bloke on the ground tackling the smallest bloke. It's a tough one.
You've had the 4 losses, mate. The last couple have been getting big. You've got a big month coming up, some real tough games. How do you embrace that now? How do you keep them up positive and upbeat?
Yeah, we want to be realistic with each other as well. We want to understand why we're not getting games done, why we're not getting results. We know why today again. That becomes frustrating after a while if it's the same thing. And unfortunately, the last couple of losses has been the same thing. So it's about learning. It's about embracing the fact that we are young and we've got a lot of enthusiasm and we'll fight. We've had 1 week out of 8 where we haven't brought that intensity and want for the contest. We brought that today, but we missed some other areas. That's okay. That's a learn for us. We've got to continue to bring that, and then you can walk off with at least your head held high. But the frustration for our boys is they want to improve. They know it, and watching it back on Vision, the game's very easy when you watch back on Vision. We're all coaches now are the best footballers they've ever been. It's such an easy game from the stand, but that's our work on. Is put games into these guys, but actually fast track the development. We have to fast track it. We can't keep coming off and being pleased with effort and fight. We've got to start to own a few games and control them. I thought we did that a little better earlier in the year. We'll get back to it.
I know that you lost a couple of small forwards for probably a little bit of time, but do you look at whether you continue with 3 talls at the moment, or?
Yeah, we have some flexibility when we do that. Riley played on a wing again today. We were close to chucking Riley in the ruck. At that point, we'd made the change, and then he had a small tweak of what looked like his knee, and we didn't want to take a risk with putting him in around the footy after that point. So there is some flexibility for us to go smaller ahead of the ball, but again today, our intention was to go slightly smaller ahead of the footy and get a little bit more run in there. The footy gods didn't agree with that, and they decided to take 2 of our small pressure forwards out pretty early in the game. So it's hard for us to judge our forward line today, but in saying that, and they know it, we were beaten. Our forwards were beaten today. We didn't take the marks we should have taken when the opportunities were there, and the ball came out of our forward line far too easily again.
Was putting Riley in the ruck, was that anything to do with the game that Rob was playing? He had 6 touches today. Looking at the stats. No, it wasn't. It was more about probably the forward mix, as you asked. It was more about what we had ahead of the ball and whether we could bring more heat on the ground. We felt like their sort of running backs were getting the ball and bringing it out a little too easily. But for Rob, there's a lot of things we look at with Rob, and it's about
today was about momentum out of stoppage. We thought, even watching their game plan, it was obvious they were looking to surge and get the ball going. It was extremely slippery. So Rob was a reasonable part of that early. It wasn't necessarily that Rob wasn't performing for us.
So Matthew, Sam Taylor last week, Tom Cleary this week. What's your read on Taylor Walker?
Yeah, well, as I said with all forwards, I thought we were beaten today. Tex is one of those, but it's not, by no means is it an individual not performing. It's a collective. We keep pumping the ball down the line and we don't take it off the line and use the ball and try and, I guess, get our delivery inside 50 to advantage. We're making it hard for Tex. And we spoke about this over the first couple of weeks of the season when everyone, Tex was on fire and everything. Well, and part of that was we were playing very well as a footy team and moving the ball well, using the ball when we needed to, changing directions, challenging the opposition, and Tex found himself in some great positions. Now, I'm not taking anything away from what Tex was doing in the first month, but there is a responsibility on every player, all 22 of us, to deliver the ball in a certain way at times. And there's a responsibility on Tex to compete when we're not able to do that.
Disposal efficiency going inside 50 was an issue. I think we spoke about it last week, and Mark's inside 50 as well. What do you do to address those things that seem to be ongoing issues forward? We
keep training it. It's not an area that we haven't focused on. We'll sit down as a coaching group. We need to get better. We need to find a way to help our players get better in that space. And again, it's bigger than just the last kick that goes inside 50. Stats can sometimes send you in the wrong way. We need to build the ball up. We need to challenge the opposition through the midfield. I thought today we did. We had a number of times where we were able to do that, and we looked quite dangerous, and we didn't quite finish off the last one. So your point is not. I'm not saying your point's wrong, but majority of the time we're hacking the ball in there as it sits. We'll keep working on it. We'll go back and we'll train it. We get a couple of sessions this week before West Coast.
Just back to Rob for a second. How would you assess his season? Obviously set a really high bar last year.
Yeah.
How do you assess his 2021?
Well, look, really important for us. So stoppage, we're going well from stoppage as far as getting it out of there and scoring. He has a lot to do with that. So, from a hit-outs point of view or from where we want that ball to go, pleased with how Rob's going in that space. We're asking a lot of Rob too. We'd like to keep our second ruck at forward as much as we can. Rob's got a big engine, gets around the ground. But it hasn't been to the level where Rob was last year. He hasn't quite found that level. That was quite a high bar that he set last year. So by no means are we concerned about where Rob's at this point. I think last week was probably the one where even he, post-game, felt like it wasn't his best. Thought today was a pretty good scrap. I'll have to go back and look at it in a lot more detail before I make an assessment on his individual game on its own.
Yesterday you said that Rowie was one of the guys that was most looking forward to the showdown. He obviously lost those two small forwards. How do you assess his game? It seemed to me that he really provided some of that energy you needed.
We kicked the first one, for us, and you can see the energy he brings. I felt for some of the guys running around the forward line after we lost a few. It changes everything that you're doing when you're playing midfielders forward. There's a tendency for them to come back to the ball, and they've sort of played their careers as on ballers and haven't spent as much time connecting with our forward group. But Rowie brings energy. He brings energy at training. He brings energy in games. He like Tex, he's a product of what we're doing with the footy and how we're moving it. There's no lack of effort from him. He's scrapped. He's a real positive for us.